Imagine stepping into a world where chandeliers gleam like stars, where every guest is promised a throne of luxury only to find yourself erased, unseen, a ghost in your own kingdom. This is the story of Marcus Hayes, a titan who built an empire of five-star dreams, only to watch it crumble under the weight of arrogance and neglect. When whispers of mistreated guests and rogue staff reach his ears, Marcus doesn't send memos or summon suits. He walks in alone, a stranger in his own house, ready to unmask the rot. What unfolds is a clash of power and pettiness, a slow burn of tension, igniting into a reckoning that turns a single night into a legend. From a deleted reservation to a hotel reborn, this is a tale of justice served cold, with a smirk that says, never underestimate the man who knows every corner of the game. The lobby of Aurora Heights shimmered like a jewel in the heart of Chicago, all polished marble and golden light spilling from chandeliers that hung like constellations. It was the kind of place where a night's stay could drain your savings, where the air smelled of wealth and the staff wore smiles stitched with promises of perfection. Marcus Hayes stepped through the revolving doors, his worn sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor, a stark contrast to the tailored suits and clicking heels around him. At 47, he was a man who'd clawed his way from nothing to build Hayes Hospitality, a name synonymous with luxury across the country. This hotel was his crown jewel, or it had been until the complaints started piling up like unpaid bills. Guests ignored, staff sneering, rooms vanishing from the system for certain people. Today, he wasn't the CEO in a corner office. He was just Marcus, a guy with a backpack and a reservation, here to see how far his empire had fallen. Marcus adjusted the strap of his bag and took in the scene. The lobby buzzed with activity bellhops gliding with luggage carts, a couple in designer coats laughing over champagne flutes, a businessman barking into his phone. Yet, as he approached the front desk, something shifted. The two clerks behind the counter, one adjusting her hair, the other tapping at a screen, didn't even glance his way. He stood there, fully grown, breathing, a man who'd signed the checks to build this very room, and yet he might as well have been a shadow on the wall. A woman in a fur-trimmed jacket brushed past him, snapping her fingers at the desk, and instantly, both clerks sprang to life. "Welcome to Aurora Heights, ma'am." One chirped, all teeth and charm. Marcus waited, the knot in his stomach tightening. This wasn't philosophy or some cosmic joke. It was real, and it stung. He stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me," he said, voice steady, the kind he'd used to calm drunks or talk down thieves in his younger days. The clerk nearest him, a young woman with blonde hair pulled into a messy bun and a name tag reading Sarah Parker, didn't budge. She leaned back in her chair, phone in hand, thumbs dancing across the screen. Marcus tapped the counter, a little. Louder this time. Nothing. "Excuse me," he repeated, sharper now. Sarah let out a sigh that could have shattered glass, the kind you save for someone who's ruined your day by existing. She dragged her eyes up to meet his, blinking like he'd just popped out of thin air. "Ah," she said, not a hint of welcome in her tone, just a flat, bored syllable that landed like a slap. Marcus tilted his head, keeping his cool. "I have a reservation. Marcus Hayes." Sarah's lips twitched into something that might have been a smirk if it weren't so lazy. She turned to her computer, fingers hovering over the keys like they weighed a ton. Nope, don't see it," she muttered, barely looking at the screen before her gaze flicked back to her phone. Marcus arched a brow. "You sure about that?" She didn't even flinch. "Pretty sure," she said, and that was it. Conversation over, as far as she was concerned. Marcus exhaled slowly, the old cop instincts kicking in. This wasn't a glitch or a busy day. This was deliberate, and he could feel it in the way her eyes slid past him, like he didn't belong in her polished little world. He'd come here to test the waters, and already they were murkier than he'd feared. Marcus Hayes stood at the front desk of Aurora Heights, the weight of Sarah Parker's dismissive "pretty sure" still hanging in the air like a bad smell. The lobby hummed around him, soft jazz trickling from hidden speakers, the clink of glasses from the bar, the rustle of expensive fabrics as guests breezed by. But here, in this little bubble of indifference, it was just him and Sarah, locked in a silent standoff. He'd spent years building this place to be a sanctuary, a 5-star escape where every guest felt like royalty. And yet, here he was, the man who'd signed the blueprints, reduced to an annoyance by a clerk who couldn't be bothered to look up from her phone. Marcus kept his face neutral, but inside, a slow fire was starting to burn. He leaned forward, slightly, resting one elbow on the counter, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Check again." Sarah rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, like he was some kid asking for a second scoop of ice cream. She huffed, her fingers tapping the keyboard with all the enthusiasm of a sloth on sedatives. "Nope," she said, popping the P for effect. Still nothing. "Sorry." The word dripped with boredom, not a shred of apology in it. She flicked her gaze back to her phone, thumbs resuming their dance across the screen, as if Marcus had already ceased to exist. Here's the kicker, folks. She didn't even pretend to care. This wasn't just laziness. This was a choice. Marcus had seen it before, in his days patrolling the streets. The way some people size you up in a heartbeat and decided you weren't worth their time. He tilted his head, studying her. The messy bun, the chipped nail polish, the way her lips twitched like she was holding back a smirk. "You sure you checked, right?" He pressed, keeping his tone even. Sarah's eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation breaking through her apathy. "I'm saying it's not here, okay? Maybe you got the wrong hotel. Happens all the time." Her voice carried that condescending lilt, the kind you use when you think you're talking to someone too dumb to notice. Marcus straightened, slipping a hand into his pocket. "Funny you should say that," he said, pulling out his phone. He scrolled with deliberate calm, opening the confirmation email he'd sent himself through the internal system, a suite. "Top floor, booked under Marcus Hayes. I've got my booking right here." He held the screen up, the black and white proof glowing under the lobby's golden light. Sarah barely glanced at it, her smirk faltering for a split second before she shrugged. "Yeah, well, the system doesn't lie. Maybe you messed up the dates or something." "Neither does my damn email," Marcus shot back, his patience thinning but his voice still steady. He'd dealt with liars before, suspects spinning tailies in interrogation rooms, and Sarah was no mastermind. Her eyes darted away, avoiding his, and that's when he knew. This wasn't a mistake. She'd taken one look at him, the faded shirt, the lack of a Rolex, and decided he didn't belong in her pristine little kingdom. He clenched his jaw, inhaling slowly through his nose. Check. Again. And here's where it gets juicy. Marcus isn't just any guest with a grudge. Sarah sighed louder this time, a theatrical gust that could have blown the chandelier off the ceiling. "Fine," she muttered, tapping the keys with exaggerated slowness. Still nada. "Look, sir, maybe you should call corporate or whatever. Not my problem." She leaned back, crossing her arms, daring him to push further. Marcus didn't bite. Instead, he pulled out his second phone, the one he kept for business, the one with full access to Hayes Hospitality's internal network. He tapped in his credentials, the screen lighting up with the hotel's reservation log. There it was, Marcus Hayes, Suite 1801, confirmed. And then, a line that made his blood simmer: reservation manually deleted. 1447, by Sarah Parker. Front desk clerk, 10 minutes ago. Right after he'd walked in, he scrolled further, curiosity turning to cold realization. Sarah's name popped up again, and again deleted bookings, flagged as guest errors, all within the last month. A pattern, a choice. She wasn't just sloppy. She was picking who got to stay and who got the boot, all based on her own petty whims. Marcus glanced up at her, suppressing the urge to grin. She was still scrolling, oblivious, her phone casting. A faint glow on her smug face. "Tell me something, Sarah," he said, his voice dropping low, dangerous. "What happens when you delete a reservation?" She hummed, barely looking up. "Oh, it just removes it from the system." "No big deal." He nodded, slow and deliberate, then turned his phone around. Her eyes flickered to the screen, and for the first time, the boredom drained from her face. There it was, her name, her crime in crisp digital ink. She swallowed hard, her fingers freezing mid-tap. "Oh, Sarah, you've just stepped into the deep end. What happens when the man you dismissed turns out to hold your fate in his hands? Stick around, because Marcus is about to turn this lobby upside down. Want more tales of justice and jaw-dropping twists? Hit that subscribe button for legacy stories. We've got a front row seat to the reckoning, and you won't want to miss a second of it. RISP Digital Ink." She swallowed hard, her fingers freezing mid-tap. The air in the Aurora Heights lobby felt thicker now, charged with the weight of Sarah Parker's faltering composure. Marcus Hayes leaned against the counter, his second phone still glowing with the damning evidence of her digital crime. His reservation deleted with a few lazy keystrokes. Sarah's eyes darted from the screen to his face, her fingers twitching like she wanted to snatch the phone and make it disappear. For the first time since he'd walked in, she wasn't bored. Or smug. She was cornered, and Marcus could see the gears grinding in her head, searching for an escape. He'd spent years reading people's suspects, witnesses, liars, and Sarah was no different. She'd underestimated him, and that was her first mistake. Her second? Thinking he'd let it slide. Marcus lowered his voice, just enough to keep it between them, but every word carried a razor's edge. "So, Sarah, why the hell did you delete my reservation?" Her mouth opened, then closed, a fish gasping on dry land. I didn't," she stammered, her voice cracking. "It must have been a glitch or something." A glitch. Marcus almost laughed. He tapped the screen, zooming in on her name in the log. "A glitch with your name on it? That's a new one." Her face lost a little more color, the smirk she'd worn like armor now nowhere to be found. Here's where the mask starts to slip, folks. Sarah scrambled, her hands fumbling toward the keyboard as if she could undo the past 5 minutes. "Look, I don't know, okay? Sometimes the system just..." Marcus cut her off, his tone still calm but unyielding. "Don't even try it, Sarah. I've seen the log. You deleted it 10 minutes ago, right after I walked in." "Why?" She froze, her eyes flicking to the side, avoiding his. Then, like a switch flipped, the panic gave way to defiance. She crossed her arms, leaning back with a scoff. "What's it to you? You think you're some big shot who can waltz in here and demand stuff. I don't even know you." Marcus tilted his head, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. She didn't know him, not yet. "You don't have to know me," he said. "You just have to do your job. So let's try this again. Find me a room. Now." Sarah's jaw tightened, her defiance flickering like a candle in the wind. She wanted to push back. He could see it, but something in his stare made her hesitate. With a huff that could have shattered glass, Sarah turned to her computer, her fingers slamming the keys harder than necessary. "Fine," she muttered, her voice dripping with venom. "Let's see what we've got." The screen flickered, and after a moment, she grabbed a key card from the drawer, shoving it across the counter like she was tossing him a live grenade. "Here you go, sir. Room 1427. Marcus picked up the card, glancing at the number. He didn't react, not yet, but he knew exactly what she'd done. Room 1427 wasn't just any room. It was the worst in the building, tucked by the elevators, next to the maintenance closet, with a stunning view of the dumpster out back. He designed this hotel, walked every inch of its floors. This wasn't an accident. It was a jab, a petty little screw you from a clerk who thought she'd won. "Oh, Sarah, you've just poked the wrong bear." Marcus slid the key into his pocket, his face a mask of calm. "Room 1427, huh? Interesting choice." Sarah smirked, leaning back in her chair. "It's what's available. Take it or leave it." Her tone dared him to complain, to prove he was the nobody she'd pegged him for. He met her gaze, unflinching. "Do I look stupid to you, Sarah?" Her smirk faltered, confusion creeping in. "No, she started, but he cut her off, his voice low and steady. "Then why the hell are you trying to play me like I don't know exactly what you just did?" Dead silence. The lobby's hum faded into the background, the tension between them thick enough to choke on. Sarah's defiance cracked, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. She'd miscalculated, and she knew it. Marcus turned to leave, the keycard burning a hole in his pocket, but he didn't make it 3 steps before something caught his ear. 2 guests, a middle-aged couple in travel-worn jackets, stood near the couches, their voices low but sharp with frustration. "They told us there's no record of our booking either," the woman said, clutching a crumpled printout. "We drove 6 hours for this, and now they're saying we can't check in." Her husband shook his head, muttering, "Same damn excuse." "System error." Marcus slowed, his cop instincts kicking in. He pulled out his phone, pretending to check a message while he hit record. The couple's story spilled out confirmed reservation, ignored at the desk, rushed off with shrugs. "The girl just said not her problem," the woman added, her voice trembling. Marcus's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about him anymore. Sarah wasn't an outlier. She was a symptom, a festering sore in a system he'd built to be flawless. He glanced back at the desk. Sarah was watching him now, her eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. She thought she'd gotten rid of him, tucked him away in a broom closet of a room where he couldn't complain. She had no idea the storm she'd just unleashed. And here's where it gets wild. One bad apple might spoil the bunch. But what if the whole tree's rotten? Marcus had come here to test the waters, but now he was diving headfirst into a mess. Bigger than he'd imagined. What's a man like him, cool-headed but relentless, going to do when he realizes his empire's crumbling from the inside? You won't believe what's coming next. Marcus Hayes stepped into room 1427, the keycard clicking in the lock with a sound that echoed like a bad omen. The door creaked open, revealing a space that smelled of damp carpet and regret. The hum of the nearby elevator rattled the walls. A relentless drone that promised sleepless nights, while a sliver of light from the window framed a glorious view of the dumpster below, its lid propped open with overflowing trash. This wasn't a room, it was a punishment. A middle finger from Sarah Parker, wrapped in faded wallpaper and a lumpy mattress. Marcus dropped his backpack on the floor, the thud swallowed by the musty air, and let out a slow breath. He'd designed Aurora Heights to be a palace, not a prison, but here he was, standing in the proof of how far it had fallen. He didn't waste time sulking. Marcus pulled his laptop from his bag, flipped it open on the rickety desk, and logged into the Haze Hospitality internal system. The screen glowed, casting sharp shadows across his face as he dove into the data. First stop, the reservation logs. His own booking stared back at him, Suite 1801, deleted by Sarah Parker, but he didn't stop there. He scrolled through weeks of records, his fingers moving with the precision of a man who'd once tracked down leads in dark alleys. Patterns emerged like cracks in a mirror. Dozens of reservations flagged as guest errors, canceled without explanation, all tied to Sarah's login. Some had notes. Didn't look like our usual clientele, one read. His jaw tightened. This wasn't incompetence. It was malice. A gatekeeper deciding who got to walk through his doors. Here's the twist. Folks, one clerk can ruin a night, but it takes a system to ruin a legacy. Marcus leaned back, the chair creaking under him, and rubbed his temples. Sarah wasn't just a bad apple, she was a symptom, and he needed to find the disease. He dug deeper, pulling up Sarah's employee file. Hired 2 years ago, minimal experience, a string of warnings for attitude issues that never led to anything. Complaints piled up like dirty laundry, refused to assist guests, claimed no rooms available, dismissed a family of 4. Without checking system, argued with guest over a spilled drink in the lobby. One report stood out. A guest accused her of racial profiling, claiming she'd smirked and said, maybe trying to motel down the street. No follow-up, no discipline. Marcus's stomach churned. He built this empire on fairness, on giving. Everyone a shot, and here was Sarah, spitting on that promise with every smug shrug. But she wasn't alone. Cross-referencing her shifts, he found overlaps with other complaints, bellhops ignoring calls, housekeeping skipping rooms, front desk staff brushing off issues with the same tired system error excuse. Sarah was the loudest note in a symphony of neglect, and Marcus needed to know who was conducting. That's when he found Daniel Brooks, the hotel manager. Marcus pulled up his profile mid-40s, balding, a resume padded with corporate buzzwords, but light on results. The internal notes told the real story. Avoids confrontation. Delegates. All staff issues. Failed to address multiple guest complaints. A report from 6 months ago flagged Sarah's behavior with a recommendation for termination. Daniel's response? We'll monitor and retrain. Monitor and retrain. Marcus snorted. The only thing Daniel had monitored was his own ass staying glued to that cushy office chair. He cross-checked Daniel's emails. Hundreds of ignored messages from guests, staff, even corporate, all begging for action. One from a regional supervisor read, Aurora Heights is bleeding reputation. Do something. Daniel's reply, working on it. Working on it, my foot, Marcus thought. This wasn't just negligence. It was cowardice, a man too spineless to wield the axe when it mattered. Marcus closed his laptop, the screen's glow fading as a plan took shape. Firing Sarah would be satisfying, but it wouldn't fix the rot. He needed to gut this place top to bottom and rebuild it right. He grabbed his phone, dialing his assistant, Elena, on a secure line. Elena, he said when she picked up. Shut down Aurora Heights tomorrow. Full audit. Every guest conked, every complaint reviewed, every employee under the microscope. I want it spotless. Her voice crackled with surprise. Tomorrow? That's tomorrow, he cut in. And get me a list of replacements for the manager. This one's done. He hung up, staring out at the dumpster through the grimy window. Sarah thought she'd won by sticking him here. Daniel thought he could hide behind excuses. They had no idea the reckoning he was about to unleash. And now the stage is set. A man with a mission, a hotel on the brink, and a storm brewing in the shadows. What happens when Marcus takes his findings to the top and brings the hammer down? You'll want to stick around for this one, because the fallout's going to be epic. Marcus Hayes stepped out of room 1427, a stale air of defeat clinging to his clothes as he shut the door behind him. The elevator's hum faded into a distant buzz, replaced by the steady rhythm of his own heartbeat. He'd spent the last hour peeling back the layers of rot in Aurora Heights, and what he'd found wasn't just a problem, it was a betrayal. This wasn't the empire he built from sweat and sleepless nights. It was a hollow shell, propped up by apathy and arrogance. His phone buzzed in his pocket, Elena confirming the audit was in motion. But Marcus wasn't waiting for tomorrow. Justice didn't sleep. and neither would he. With every step down the hall, his resolve hardened. Sarah Parker and Daniel Brooks were about to learn what happened when you crossed the wrong man. The lobby greeted him with its usual sheen marble floors reflecting the chandeliers' glow, guests sipping cocktails like nothing was wrong. Marcus cut through the crowd, his faded shirt and sneakers drawing a few curious glances, but he didn't care. He bypassed the front desk, where Sarah was now chatting with a coworker, her laughter grating on his nerves. She didn't see him coming, not yet. His target was the glass-walled office tucked behind the counter, where Daniel Brooks sat hunched over a desk, pretending to work. Marcus didn't knock. He pushed the door open, the hinges squeaking loud enough to make Daniel jump. "Mr. Hayes?" Daniel sputtered, his balding head snapping up, eyes wide behind smudged glasses. Sweat beaded on his forehead, like he'd been caught with his hand in the till. What a surprise!" Marcus shut the door with a soft click, leaning against it, arms crossed. "Cut the crap, Daniel. We need to talk. Here's where the hammer drops, folks." Daniel's face drained of color, his hands fumbling with a stack of papers. "Of course, sir. What can I?" Marcus held up a hand, silencing him. "I just had my reservation deleted by your front desk clerk." Sarah Parker. "Know anything about that?" Daniel blinked, his mouth opening and closing like a broken toy. "I deleted? That's, who?" Marcus stepped forward, his voice low and steady. "Take a wild guess." Daniel swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Sarah? Oh, no, I mean, she's a bit rough around the edges, but..." "Rough around the edges?" Marcus cut in, his tone sharp enough to slice through steel. "She's been deleting bookings, mine, others based on who she thinks belongs here. I've got the logs, Daniel. And you? You've got a stack of complaints on your desk you've ignored for months. Maybe years." Daniel's hand shook, papers slipping to the floor. I was going to handle it, Mr. Hayes, I swear. I thought she just needed more training." Marcus laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Training? She's not some rookie who can't find the on button. She's a problem, and you let her run wild." "Why?" Daniel shrank back, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't want the hassle. Firing people, it's messy, you know? Oh, Daniel, you've just signed your own exit papers." Marcus straightened, his eyes narrowing. "Messy's what you've got now." Guest turned away, staff out of control. "This hotel bleeding reputation. That's on you." Marcus jerked his head toward the door. "Get up. You're firing her. Right now." Daniel's jaw dropped. "Right now." "But now?" Marcus snapped, his patience gone. Daniel hesitated, then stumbled to his feet, realizing there was no escape. Marcus followed him out, arms crossed, as Daniel shuffled to the front desk like a man walking to the gallows. The lobby hushed as Daniel cleared his throat, his voice trembling. "Sarah, we need to talk." She turned, mid-laugh, her smirk fading when she saw Marcus behind him. "What?" she snapped. Daniel glanced at Marcus, then back at her. You're terminated. Effective immediately." Sarah's eyes widened, her face twisting. "What? You can't. This is a mistake." She spun to Marcus, pointing. "This is because of him, isn't it? Some nobody whining about a room?" Marcus stepped forward, his voice cutting through her tantrum. "I'm Marcus Hayes. This is my hotel. And you're done." The words landed like a thunderclap. Sarah froze, her mouth gaping as gasps rippled through the crowd. She tried to argue, tears welling up. "It's not fair." "I didn't." But 2 security guards appeared, ushering her out. She stormed off, throwing a final hateful glare over her shoulder, her heels clicking into silence. The lobby buzzed, guests whispering, staff gaping. Marcus turned to the remaining clerks, his voice calm but firm. "Things change around here. Now, a young guy nodded furiously, "Yes, sir," while others scrambled to look busy. Marcus pulled out his phone, dialing Elena again. "Audit's on. Shut it down tonight. Every guest comped, every record checked. We're starting over." The lobby of Aurora Heights buzzed with a different energy now. The echoes of Sarah Parker's exit still lingering like static in the air. Marcus Hayes stood by the front desk, watching the staff scramble to regain their footing keyboards. Clacking, phones ringing, faces tight with the kind of focus that only comes when the boss is watching. He just dropped a bomb, revealing himself as the man who'd built this empire, and the shockwaves were still rippling. Daniel Brooks had slunk back to his office, tail between his legs, but Marcus wasn't done with him. Not yet. He'd come here to test the waters, but now he was draining the swamp. This wasn't just about one night. It was about reclaiming what he built. Marcus turned to Daniel's office, pushing the door open without a word. Daniel looked up, his face a mask of dread. "Mr. Hayes, pack your stuff," Marcus said, cutting him off. "You're done." Daniel's mouth fell open, a weak protest forming, but Marcus raised a hand. "You let this place rot. I don't need a manager who hides from problems. I need one who fixes them. Out." Daniel stammered, then deflated, grabbing his coat and stumbling out like a man who'd lost his last lifeline. Marcus didn't watch him go. He was already on the phone with Elena. "New manager by morning," he said, "and start retraining every employee here. This isn't a suggestion, it's an order." He didn't stop there. Marcus pulled up the guest complaint logs on his laptop, scrolling through names and stories. Families turned away, couples ignored, all with the same thread of disrespect. He called each one personally, his voice steady but warm. "This is Marcus Hayes, owner of Aurora Heights. I'm sorry for what happened. Your next stay's on me VIP treatment. It won't happen again." Some hung up, skeptical. Others thanked him, stunned. He didn't care about the cost. This was his name, his legacy, and he'd be damned if it stayed tarnished later. Marcus stood in Suite 1801, the room he'd booked, now his for the night, gazing out at Chicago's skyline. The city glittered below, a sea of lights against the dark, and for the first time all day, he let himself feel it. The anger at Sarah's arrogance, the frustration at Daniel's cowardice, the sting of being invisible in his own house. But beneath it all was pride, not the loud kind, but the quiet certainty that he'd fought for something worth saving. He'd learned this long ago. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about building something better. Aurora Heights would rise again, not as a hollow shell, but as a promise kept. And here's the heart of it. One man's stand can rewrite the rules. Marcus smiled faintly, the weight lifting. He'd turned a night of chaos into a new beginning, and that was enough. What's a legacy if it doesn't endure? Marcus knew this story would spread whispers of the night the owner cleaned house, a tale of grit and grace. If you've ever faced down a bully or fought for what's right, this one's for you. Loved watching Marcus turn the tables? Subscribe to Legacy Stories. We're here to bring you more epic showdowns, where the little guy wins big and the stakes are sky high. Hit that button, share your own fight, and let's keep the fire burning.